Hi everybody, Dan Illman, Matt Bernier. Saturday's DRF race of the day is the Grade 1 Pacific Classic at Del Mar. It's Del Mar's signature race of the meeting, and it's also part of the Breeders' Cup Challenge Series. That means it is a win and you're in for the Breeders' Cup Classic. Let's take a look at this field. They're going to go 1.25 miles. Approximate post time 6:43 Pacific. Carded is race number 10 at Del Mar. And Matt, with the retirement of Gun Runner and Justify, Accelerate is arguably the top horse in the country. He is certainly the best handicap horse on the West Coast, and he is a deserving favorite in the P Classic.
Absolutely is. He's strictly the horse to beat in here, and I understand, you lose Victor Espinoza. Unfortunately, he's sidelined with an injury, but you pick up Joel Rosario, and in the past, Rosario and Sadler have had success together. I think the big key for Accelerate this year as a 5-year-old, he has a little bit more versatility, and I think he's got a little bit more professionalism. 1.25 miles is not a problem for him. He can sit, he can go. From a speed figure standpoint, I feel like a broken record. It's nice to see what these horses are capable of when you give them the opportunity to develop and mature physically and mentally, and I think we're seeing that with Accelerate.
And I like that he skipped that San Diego handicap. Of course, John Sadler had the impressive winner of that race, Catalina Cruiser, and going into the race, Accelerate was coming in off a couple of half-mile works. That's not really Sadler's MO. He's coming into the Pacific Classic off those long, strong 5, 6, 7 furlong drills. I have a feeling we're going to see the best of Accelerate on Saturday, and he does have that wonderful tactical speed. Let's take the rest of the field in post-position order, beginning with the number 1. This is Justify's older half-brother, the Lieutenant, who is seemingly in career form for Michael McCarthy.
He certainly is. I thought he ran a bang-up race in the Suburban. I don't want to totally knock it, but at the same time, there's a part of me that wonders, is that really what the Lieutenant is? Or is he the horse that we just sort of got used to running in those high-level allowance ranks and earning a mid to high 90 buyer? If that's the case, he can't win a race like this. If you think he may have turned a corner now for McCarthy, perhaps he's an interesting alternative.
I wonder if he's maturing at just the right time. Now, he got a great pace setup, and he got a beautiful ride from John Velasquez in the Suburban. The pace was hot. Johnny V took him back. He never stayed more than 2 paths off the rail turning into the stretch, and there wasn't a lot of running behind Diversify, but he did well to be second, splitting the next out first and third place finishers in the Whitney. Of course, Diversify coming back with a 110 buyer speed figure. It'll be interesting to see if he gets enough pace. He's kind of a mid-pack to late kind of runner. The number 2 is Dr. Door, who finished behind the Lieutenant in the Suburban, but he beat the Lieutenant twice in Southern California earlier this year. No match for Catalina Cruiser last time out. How do you think he's going to be ridden? Because the Timeform US Pace Projector has Dr. Door out there on the lead. Is he the fastest horse early?
I'm not sure if he's the fastest, but I have to be honest, I think I would ride him, or the instruction to Joe Talamo would be to ride him as if he is. I would hustle him out of there, try to establish that position. I think, unfortunately, if you're a fan of Dr. Door, at best you're looking at a scenario like we saw 3 starts back in the Gold Cup, where he is forward, he's out there on the lead, and here comes Accelerate, and he swallows him up. I think Dr. Door, you combine that with the fact that I just don't like the form that he's been in recently, I think he's hard to like in here.
Do you think 1.25 miles is a little far for him as well?
Yeah, to be honest, I think when you run him at those 2-turn distances, I think he's probably best at 1 mile and a 16th, maybe 1 mile and an 1/8. But at the end of the day, I don't really blame them for taking a shot in a spot like this if you don't think there's other true speed.
The number 3 Prime Attraction is a perfect 2 for 2 at Del Mar, and I'm a little bit surprised that Timeform US has him near the back of the pack in this pace projector, because as we've seen in the past, Prime Attraction can be a strong pace threat in any dirt race he enters. He ran well on the turf last time out in the Grade 2 Eddie Reed, and I'm just going to toss that big cap. I don't think he liked that wet track.
It's kind of how I'm approaching it. You see he's 0 for 2 lifetime on a wet surface, and I think if you look at that, he might be a little bit on the dirty side as far as form is concerned. I agree with you. I thought the Eddie Reed was a good start, considering it was his first start since early March, and that was on the dirt. 3 starts back that San Pasquale, I think you can make the argument that he was actually the best in there, or every bit as good as a horse like Accelerate, because he was outside on a day when it would help to be inside, and I thought he ran just fine. And that San Antonio, I'm drawing a line through it. If you go back to that Native Diver at Del Mar last November, that's the kind of race that gives him a puncher's chance in here at what should be a big number.
Kent DeZormo rode this horse for the first time most recently and put him right on the lead on the turf. Do you think Kent's going to get real aggressive with Prime Attraction, or do you think he plays the break and watches Dr. Door and Accelerate? I would think he would want to get the jump on Accelerate.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I think in a perfect scenario, Dr. Door breaks, Prime Attraction sits just off of his flank, and then Accelerate. The connections know that he has the ability to sit and be just as effective as if he's out there forward. And I think they probably look at it too and say, we're better than Dr. Door. We've already had him. We've already had Prime Attraction. Let's sit off. I think there's a real scenario where Prime Attraction gets first run. The question comes down to, and I shouldn't even say the question, we know what's going to happen. Prime Attraction is as dopey as it gets as far as lead changes are concerned, and you just have to hope that at 1.25 miles, it's not his undoing.
Bob Baffert, of course, trains Dr. Door, but he also trains the mystery horse in this year's Pacific Classic, the number 4 Roman Rosso, making his first start in North America. This horse has won his last 3 races, 2 Group 1s, 1 in Argentina, 1 in Uruguay. I have no idea what he's been beating over there. The 8th place horse in his most recent race came back to finish second in a Group 1 race in Peru, of all places. There's one thing I do know. If anyone else was training Roman Rosso, he'd be double the price that he's going to be on Saturday.
100%. I mean, this is really a scenario where if you like this horse, and I hate to put it this way, it's in Baffert you trust, because we don't know what we're going to get from him. You don't know what he's been facing. Look, he's been gone since March. He's been off for a long, long time. Going to come back at 1.25 miles. You hear Baffert, he says he's a 1 3/8 horse, and they're just kind of taking a shot. Look, you get Flavian Pratt here. You could do worse taking a flyer, but at the same time, I feel like he's an underlay for the reason you laid out.
We talked about Accelerate in the Open. He brings 5 consecutive triple-digit Beyer speed figures to the party. That wonderful stalking gear where he might work out a 3-wide tracking trip, gearing up on the far turn. He's always run well at Del Mar in the past, and he's simply the horse to beat. We'll move on to the 6 Beach View, and Beach View's a 1.5 mile horse. You mentioned Roman Rosso being kind of an 11-12 furlong horse. Beach View wants to go longer. He showed that last time out in the Cougar the Second Handicap when he took the scalp of a really nice older horse in Opportunity. But boy, he couldn't have asked for a better trip against weaker company.
Yeah, I was going to say, you want to talk about just sort of the seas parting and him being able to shoot up right on the inside. Everything worked out beautifully for him. I have to be honest, I love what Leonard Powell said earlier in the week talking about running here as opposed to the Del Mar Handicap. He said, I think I've got a better chance to run third in this race than I do to win the Del Mar Handicap. And I think that's how you should approach this horse from a handicapper standpoint. I don't think he can win the race, but I think at a big, big number, he can run third or fourth.
Pavel finished behind Accelerate in both the San Pasquale and the Gold Cup. He did have a lot of traffic issues in the San Pasquale. In the Gold Cup, it was his first race back from Dubai, and perhaps he wasn't really cranked up. He looked good in the Stephen Foster last time out. Now, I wonder if that was a situation where, A, that was the time to have him last time, and B, it was a hot, humid night and a couple of horses just didn't show up.
You know I'm as big a Pavel fan as you'll find. This is an instance where if he wins or even runs well, I will lose because I'm throwing him out entirely. I'm taking the stance that the Stephen Foster was arguably the worst grade 1 of the year. You go through and look, the 3rd place finisher, Matru, he came back and earned a 95 Beyer. Runners 4 through 8, they've all returned and none of them have Beyered 90 or greater. They've all been in the low to high 80s. To me, that's a situation where he just took advantage of a bad field. The favorites that night all bombed. To me, Pavel's the kind of horse that you can have him at a shortish price.
Long shot 235 completes this field. He was no match for Catalina Cruiser and Dr. Door last time out when stepped up in the San Diego Handicap. Hey, a nice $25,000 claim. He's up against it.
Up against it. I think he was exposed last time, but again, like you say, nice claim for Baltus and company, and maybe they can get a small award.
I think we both agree Accelerate's the horse to beat and a must-use in any sort of multiple race wager. But as we throw up our picks, we're going to look for a little bit of a price. I think you made some good cases for Prime Attraction. You've been chasing him since he was against the track in the San Pasquale, and he certainly has excuses. He's really the epitome of a dirtied-up horse that can be more forward than the Timeform U.S. pace projector has him, and you have an 8-1 on the morning line.
Now, to be fair, he's also an absolute, mind you know what, because you have no idea what you're going to get from him, because he'll show up with a good race one day and the next day he'll come back and be absolutely putrid. I'm hopeful, second off the bench, getting back to the dirt, 1.25 miles. I expect him to change leads 15 times down the lane. I'm just hopeful that he's the one that gets first run on Accelerate.
Give me numbers.
I'm going to go 3, 5, 6, and 4.
I'm hoping that the lieutenant is maturing at the right time and that he has found his right distance at 1.25 miles. No diversifies in here other than Accelerate. And I'm hoping that Accelerate has to deal with Dr. Door, has to deal with Prime Attraction, maybe get softened up just a little bit. And here comes Justify's big brother, the lieutenant. He's 6-1 on the morning line. I'll go 1-5-2-7 in the Saturday DRF race of the day. The Grade 1 Pacific Classic, part of the Breeders' Cup Challenge Series. It's a win and you're in for the Breeders' Cup Classic.